Hey guys, welcome to the CGM podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kurt Fehlis, and it is great to be back with you today. And I have a special guest with me. My friend Walter Ballou is joining me today, and we're going to get to have a fun conversation. Walter, how are you?
Man, it's good to be here, Kurt. I've been watching you from a distance on all these podcasts. They're amazing, and I really just want to see all the outtakes. That's really the best part of all this.
And you want to get down here in this amazing studio we have and see this.
Yes.
I mean, behind the camera, y'all don't really get to experience all this, but this setup down here, our team does an amazing job putting this together, and but as we look around, I mean, we see all kinds of different stuff in here that you wouldn't expect in a studio, but it's here.
There's some great conversations coming out of this, and a lot of topics and things that are being discussed that are pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, so Walter, you have been here at Green Acres for 19 years now?
Yeah. This fall will be 19 years.
19 years.
That's crazy.
And part of the conversation we want to have is in part about something that's coming new for you here in the next few weeks and months. It's going to start layering out. You're going to take an active role in our men's ministry here at Green Acres going forward.
Yes. I'll be taking that whole role on and building out a men's ministry here at Green Acres.
As a man, I'm super excited to see where this goes because it's been a need here at our church, right? People, I've heard it from different spouses share, man, I just love for something for my husband to get involved in, or they've maybe seen the need for their sons or their husbands to jump in, or even other men say, man, I'm struggling with community, or I'm struggling here. And a men's ministry, creating a structure for men to grow. That sounds really exciting.
That's huge. It
is. So our hope today in this conversation is twofold. One, even though you've been here 19 years, I guarantee there are listeners and people who may not know you. And so before we dive too far into the topic of men's ministry, I just want to give a little bit of a platform here for people to know you. So Walter, family, right? Married?
Yep, Shelly. We've been married 29 years. She's an amazing lady, no doubt. She's been an incredible stability in my life, no doubt. She's an amazing lady. And our two kids, Taylor and Seth. Taylor is 24, and she got married just a couple of years ago to Aaron Gibson. And they're actually in our church as well. And I don't know how many questions I've answered over the last couple of years about Taylor. Oh, you're Taylor's dad. Yeah. The famous Taylor is kind of how it comes out.
Fun little plug here, right? Because Taylor hosts for our women's ministry their Equip podcast, and she puts out I think they're on season 2 or 3 of that, season 3 now.
Yeah.
She does a great job interviewing guests, having topics specific to women's ministry, which is a whole different topic. We didn't even mention that we may touch on the fact that the Ballou family tree is going to be touching both men's and women's ministry, which is pretty cool.
Yes, that's a pretty good plug you just gave her there, too.
I did. I'm trying to help Taylor out.
She's doing great. Seeing a ton of stuff on social media, and I laugh sometimes because I will see a video with Debbie and her team dancing around. I was like, that's Taylor did that to Debbie. Yep, it's hilarious.
Well, okay, so you have Taylor, and then
there's Seth. He just graduated from DBU and got a job his last semester for a sports company, and is doing a great job. And then he's getting married to Maddie in December, so we're really excited. Really excited.
You and Shelly, 2 adult kids, getting ready to have 2 kids-in-law joining into the family fold. And then there's another very important member of the Ballou family I think that we would be sad if we didn't mention.
And I can appreciate about you, Kurt. Yeah, you are an animal person.
I love pets, and you have one.
Willow. She is a
little just tender dog, right?
Lap dog. Definitely a lap dog. 85-pound Doberman lap dog. Yes. I love it. She can be a little bit scary at times from her reputation, and she really is a lap dog. It's crazy. But some have accused me of getting the dog, the Doberman, after Seth left, and I thought, I can't deny that.
I can say, as one of your coworkers, I definitely accused you of dealing with the grief of an empty nest by getting a new puppy.
Yes. Some people did question our sanity on that. Why would you do that? But yes, it's been beneficial.
That's awesome.
So good.
That's awesome. So, well, as we get in that, we talked about your family, but I don't know how many outside of our student ministry world and maybe some of the other men and families you have a relationship with, but how many know your faith story? And so, Walter, how did you come to know the Lord? What is a little bit of your background in growing up in or not in the church, and just a little bit of who you were and how you got to this place.
Church was foreign to me growing up. I didn't really have a lot of influence around me with church, and pretty dysfunctional family growing up. My parents divorced when I was 5, and sent our family on a trajectory. It was just painful, a lot of mess, and my mom remarried several times, so I had several stepdads, and just not real pretty in a lot of ways. And I did go to church a couple times. Went to a Catholic church, went to a Presbyterian church, went to a Baptist church. One time went to church with my granny, and I'm not kidding. I think every single member, they had to check at the door. They were all gray hairs, and it was just, it was a different experience. They were so sweet and kind and nice, but I looked around, I didn't see any younger people. And that was a tough one for me. But I had a couple of friends that influenced me a little bit here and there, but it was just foreign. Church was foreign to me. And so I didn't grow up around there. And things got a little rough when I was about 15 in our family and the dynamics. I say family loosely because it was a real mess there. And made a decision one night to leave. And I just told my mom that I was going to move out, and she said, "Go ahead." And so that was a real pivotal time in my life when I was chasing a lot of things that weren't healthy, but there was nothing else to keep me there. And that was the other sad commentary when I look back, is there wasn't a foundation there to hold me. So when I left, I hopped around for a while, lived with my sister and her husband in a couple of places, and just started searching. And I remember clearly one Saturday afternoon, I am sitting on the stairs of this fire station, and no one's there. And I remember looking out, and it was like I was just looking miles and miles away, going, I don't even know where my life is going, what I'm doing. So I had moved around, searched around a little bit, and during that time, I had an uncle and some cousins that reached out to me and asked me about going to a camp with them. I'd never been to any camp, not much less a church camp. I had no idea what that was about. So I was trying to get a job. I was trying to figure out what I'm moving schools. I don't even know where I'm going to live in a few months. So finally, they just kept working me to go to this church camp. So finally said yes. Paid my way to get a flight to up to Dallas area, go to camp with them. I'm telling you, that was pretty nerve-wracking. And right before I left, my aunt gave me a Bible and said, "Here, you'll need this for the week." And it scared me so bad. I just jumped. And I was like, whoa, no, I'm not taking that. And so here's my sweet aunt just working me and telling me to get it. And I really was fearful. I said, "I've never read the Bible. I don't know anything in there." And she got a little stern when she said, "Just put it in there. You'll be fine." So during that week, I was at camp. I heard the gospel and heard life change and saw life change in my cousins, but one particular one, he had become a Christian about a year before that, and we had a similar background. I just saw incredible life change. So about the middle of the week, the Lord just got a hold of me, and I remember one night at the invitation, I grabbed on the side of my chair, and I just held on as hard as I could, because they were asking people to come down and give an invitation to talk to you about Christ. Oh, it was such a struggle, and I knew something was going on, but I really didn't know what it was. So the moment is over, I bailed out the back and just struggled that night, and got a hold of my cousin, and we stayed up till about 2:30 in the morning. So, in student ministry, there's no way we're going to let students hang out till 2 in the morning or 3 or whatever. But about 2 hours worth of questions about God, and my cousin just shared with me the Christ story and John 3:16 of God loved me, and no matter what you told me, Walter, God loves you, forgives you, and you can come know Christ. And that night is the night I came to know Christ, and just changed the trajectory of my world. My family was still a mess, but I came back, and I'd moved schools and changed, and then suddenly just had purpose, direction, and clarity that God wanted to do something in my life, where before I didn't even understand the value of that, or even the concept of what that means. So
Man,
it's powerful.
It's so good. And just a cool connection was a few years ago, we're looking for middle school camp locations. And I'd heard
you're gonna get me emotional.
Well, and I heard your story, and I knew your story. Right, we've known each other for, gosh, what is it now? 15 years. 15 years ago, I came on to do a summer internship here at Green Acres, and but I had heard your faith story, but I didn't know until we were on campus at Riverbend Retreat Center in Glen Rose that was the camp.
Yep.
And so circling back years later, we're leading middle schoolers to camp, and we're in rooms where the gospel is being presented.
Watching life
students,
change happen right
and
there.
You were there, years prior, and your cousin having those conversations with you.
Powerful.
So cool. Okay, so I want to kind of put you on the spot here and ask you three. Can you think of 3 influential moments in your life, separate than that, committing to the life change that happened when you're 15 at camp, but other points where God just maybe spoke clearly to you or changed the trajectory in your life? What were a couple of those moments for you as maybe a young husband or a dad?
Yeah. Well, I would say this one, after I'd come to know Christ, come back, moved, and I'd moved to a different town, and I was living with my real father again for a little while. And during that process, I got involved in the church. But when I say got involved, an uncle had said, hey, I know somebody down there, the youth pastor. I found out later that was a setup. We've done that a few times, right? Where we know somebody. So that was a moment for me of, man, I almost bailed out of that moment because I was uncomfortable. I knew 0 people at this church, and I'm willing to walk in to a Sunday morning Bible study and jump into a group of 15, 16-year-olds and not knowing anybody and feeling awkward. And that was a pivotal moment for me because it was a step I made of boldness, and that only comes from the Lord to give me that kind of boldness to step into that moment, and they embraced me. That was the other great thing, is that church and that group pulled me in, and that really took on the beginning of discipleship for me. And I had a youth pastor really pour into me and gave me an opportunity to be an intern with him when I graduated high school, and really just invested deeply in me. That was a big one. Yeah. I would say there's another one coming into getting married. I was pretty nervous because I've got a train wreck of mess in my history of family and divorce and all kind of mess. And I was trying to explain that to Shelly is, hey, if you marry me, you are marrying all of this business. Yeah. And I've still got things I'm working through and trying to unpack. So there was a real good moment there whenever I realized God was providing the clear direction and he was laying it out there with no obstacles in the way and said, you now have to walk this pathway. And so that was a moment of stepping into a marriage and a commitment and a vow that I said all my days till death do me part. And so that was really pivotal. That was a big one.
Well, and I think, so you've been in ministry almost 30 years, and almost entirely that time spent in student ministry, working with students, with parents, and obviously with youth workers too. But I think that's given you a unique perspective. We talk about the development and the need for a men's ministry and for the value of pouring into men. You've seen probably different ends of the spectrum while working with students, right? You can see the fruit of, man, look at this, teenager going from 6th grade to 12th grade, and he's had dads and other men pouring into him, and you can see the character development to live like Jesus kind of growing out of there. And then you've also seen situations of guys who maybe haven't had good discipleship in their life, and whether that's the parent or the student, and then you see the byproduct of, man, they never really learned the right way, and then all of a sudden their bad life choices or rough situations or an immaturity that happens, you've seen that angle play out. And so I think it's really interesting. Your history in ministry has really equipped you to step into this role.
Isn't that crazy how
very
God
uniquely
begins to weave that, and you don't always see that coming. And then at different times, he begins to open your eyes and reveal some of these things that he's been preparing you along the way. When we got into ministry, I knew God had called me that. I didn't really know exactly what all that meant. I was just committed, and I said, I'm in. I'll sign the bottom line. You fill in the rest. And we really wanted to make student ministry a career. And I just said, what would it look like to have a long obedience in the same direction? And really go against a lot of the trends of the turnover in ministry, in churches, in student ministry, but a lot of turnover there. And it's kind of sad in a lot of ways because it's a short influence. And so we really wanted to change that narrative of what it looked like. So we've been able to go a long distance with a lot of families and bring consistency for so many families of the gospel and discipleship. And so it's been really good. Some of the families that have multiple kids, 5 or 6 kids, have seen a lot of us. And that's been a really blessing to be part of.
Well, and to speak to that, I think it's been really neat as relatively the new guy on our team and students to have been here.
The new guy
being about 8 years, closing on 8 years here on staff. And to see that legacy of impacting families, because as I've stepped in, now we've got people who were early in your tenure here in student ministry who are now back at Green Acres, married with kids, and they're bringing their kids to our student ministry, or we're seeing students coming back and serving as interns or youth workers. And it's just a really neat privilege that you don't get if you don't have long tenured ministry.
Yeah, and we made some shifts along the way to go beyond just the crazy games, the pizza, the hype, to trying to have a balance across the board to realize that if we're going to reach students, we got to reach their parents. If we're going to have students being discipled, we got to help equip their parents along the way. So that process has been ongoing, and throughout this whole thing, and really the last number of years have been really good to see that more, and the value of how important it is that we got to help parents as well.
Yeah.
So in this case, where I'm moving into, that doesn't negate that. It just shifts over. Now we can focus on men, still help parents, but be able to help men become equipped to be fathers and husbands and leaders.
That's really good. So, Walter, before we dive too deep into the talk on the men's ministry aspect, I do want to do something I did with Hickson a few episodes back. And so I hope you'll entertain me here. I have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And these are meant to be fun. And they're meant to maybe catch you off guard and maybe give you some fun conversation topics when you run into some of our listeners, in the weeks ahead. So I'm going to start off. Who is your favorite professional or college team to cheer for?
Boston Celtics.
Boston Celtics, NBA Finals. Your ideal Saturday is spent doing?
Hunting or fishing.
Hunting or fishing.
I like saltwater fishing a lot. I just don't get to do it much.
Well, and you just to add in here, I know this is rapid fire, but you just got to go shark fishing, right?
Yes.
This last fall.
A tournament
Excited to hear
Sharkathon.
Oh, come
awesome.
on. All right, mountains or beach vacation?
Beach.
Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I'm a night owl.
Night owl. Student ministry trained. Best book you've read recently?
Ooh, that's a good one. God, I've been on some good ones there. This latest one, Atomic Habits, is really good. It's small impact that have long-term change.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a book for anyone. So listeners, if you haven't read Atomic Habits, jump on it. Perfect vacation spot is?
Well, we got to go on a cruise the first time ever, and I'd never had an interest in that. I love the water, except I'm ready to do that again.
Yeah, you're hooked.
Absolutely.
Preferred caffeine choice?
Definitely coffee.
Coffee,
yes.
Coffee guy. So you already alluded to this, but do you prefer hunting or fishing?
I think I don't mean to seem too cheesy, but I am hooked into this shark fishing so bad right now. Like I'm trying to find a way to go to Galveston and get a couple in. And then this fall I'm going again. I caught a 4.5 foot shark, and my goal is to get a shark as big as me.
And you know this is my nightmare, what you're talking about.
Yes.
The ocean and sharks. Favorite thing you've binge watched recently?
I finished up on Survivor.
Okay.
This latest Survivor. And we got away for a while, jumped back in the last 2 years, the last couple of seasons. It's been interesting. It's really an interesting reflection of our culture in a lot of ways as well. Yeah.
I love watching Survivor as well. And finally, your favorite dessert. If someone was going to spoil you and bring you something, what would they bring you?
Bluebell.
Bluebell ice cream?
Bluebell.
What, any particular flavor, or you just give you the carton?
This is going to just turn people's stomach. I'm a Neapolitan guy.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I have ever talked to someone who says Neapolitan ice cream is the way they go.
You know why? There are some people that think that's like the bottom of the barrel.
It is.
And it doesn't matter. I'm okay with that. That's what's bad. I love it.
Okay. So the purpose of there,
Probably
if you didn't know Walter, there's an easy way. You got to know him. He loves shark, saltwater fishing, and bring him some Neapolitan.
And Pop-Tarts.
And Pop-Tarts, because there's going to be an unlimited supply of Neapolitan because no one else likes it. Okay.
That was good.
So as we dive in here, I do want to shift back to the discussion on men's ministry. And as we were preparing, you kind of posed out a question. when do you become a man? And I thought this was a really interesting question to ask as we're in light of talking about men's ministry. And so, when do you become a man?
That has been like the haunting question for me growing up. And what I found that as I got into student ministry, that was also a lot of questions for guys coming in. And I mean, their struggle is some of them that came from strong families, but a lot of them too that were dysfunction didn't have that. And so, in all honesty, I was self-preservation. I was hunting for those answers for myself first. And I just began to watch and talk to men and families and see how they operate. I got real nosy sometimes with students, like, hey, how does your family operate? And I try to just be discreet, but over a period of years, I began to build that. And then when I had my first child, you know, that scares anybody to death. That'll give you a wake-up call going, am I ready for this? I know you're in that spot. How old's Cam now?
2.5.
He's 2.5. So there's...
Size of a 5-year-old.
That is good. And so I knew there were some things I had to learn about how to be a dad, how to be a husband, how to be a leader. So that's really what Chase said. And our culture doesn't have good answers.
No.
We have a lack of clarity. When do you become a man? Some cultures around the world have tribal and certain systems in place to kind of identify and throw a kid, a young boy into that. But we don't have that. And what's sad is that we see some adolescent 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds that are they're boys that are shaving. They haven't grown up into manhood, and some of it they don't know. They don't have an example, and they've just kind of stumbled into that, not knowing how to have manhood. So there's been a lack of clarity. And when we look at our world right now, you know, Kurt, I'd mentioned this, that it's a kind of a sad commentary. This is not a downer, but there is a lot of sad that you see men going down, men going wild, and men going absent. And we're asking these questions. What if we could intentionally change that narrative in our culture and our church to be able to have gospel-centered men that are standing strong, that are leading purposefully, and that are being present in their home, in our community, in our church? Imagine the generational impact that would have on our culture. And I'm not here to blame. We're not here to shame. We're not here to do all of that. But I am here to say, somebody's got to take ownership. And what if the church did take ownership and say, hey, I can't fix all of that, and I can't do this, but what we can do is intentionally invest and build gospel-centered, godly men that are following a biblical mandate of manhood and their calling.
That's so good. Well, and even I'm drawing a parallel here. Recently, you know, we're walking through this Better Way series, Pastor Michael leading us through the 10 Commandments. And just a few weeks ago, remember, he touched on some elements there with parenting and raising kids. And I think there's a little bit of a correlation here in what you're describing as, you know, the struggle where you have adolescent adults, right? You have these immature 20 and 30-year-old men who don't know what it looks like to lead themselves, much less lead a family, and lead out in their professions and lead out with their friends because they don't have a clear understanding and they haven't been raised in that understanding. And so I'm just thinking about the parallels of what we're seeing talked about. And even just a few weeks ago, as we looked at, Pastor Michael did an amazing sermon on do not murder, right? That commandment. But he outlined some core things that our culture is saying, oh, this is okay. Like, this is an okay thing to be casual about or to accept, isn't it, when it comes to the value of life. But that is still a corruption that, because of sin and because of a lack of understanding of God's purpose, right, the culture has gone that way, but it starts with men. Right? If men aren't leading out and speaking truth, like that's what we see in the Bible, right? Godly men came forth and led the people of Israel. But when the godly men stopped speaking up, all of a sudden the people of Israel without leadership they crumbled and went adrift. And so there's something to our culture war that's happening that connects back to the lack of men leading out.
Exactly. And what we find, biblical manhood is a calling for all men, regardless of age, marital status, birthplace, dysfunction of childhood, or personality. We see clearly there's some mandates and directives. And when men are not leading that, there begins to be a fallout in our culture, in our church, in their families. Biblically speaking, we see it at Ephesians 5. Paul talks about husbands, fathers. Titus 2 gives directive to older men and younger men. We see 1 Corinthians 16, 13 to 14 of standing firm, act like men. I love that last part of that verse is do everything in love. See, this isn't just about being some macho man or being a tough guy or being a bully or being loud. It's not that. It is a biblical directive of these elements in love.
Man.
That's where the identity comes from. That's where now our boys will grow up, our teenagers will grow up. Go a step further. When our girls will grow up and have an expectation of what it means to see a godly man and not settle for anything else. Their standards are high when they see that example. And we've seen that over and over again of girls that grow up with a godly, gospel-centered, not perfect, but a gospel-centered father. Their standards very high. They often will not take a step down to date some guy, no matter how smooth or what kind of game he's got. She's going to hold high standards to that. That's going to be excellent.
Man, and it's exciting to start to dream and think about, like, what if all of a sudden here in Tyler, Texas, in the East Texas community, we saw generations of men get out excited and on fire for living like God called them to, right? Like, the impact of that is far ranging, right? It extends to the family, it extends into workplaces, it extends into our community. There's a lot of power there and excitement. Walter, I want to ask you this question. As you start to kind of wrap your mind around a men's ministry and what it could look like and maybe where it's headed, it could be easy to look and be like, well, women's ministry does this, men's ministry, they're going to do everything women's ministry do, but they're too different, right? Like,
yes, they're very different. Yes.
How they operate, what that needs to look like. And this is by no means, we are big Debbie Stewart fans. We are big fans of everything.
Great. Yes.
Women listening to this, if you're not plugged into our women's ministry, get plugged in. There are so many good things happening.
Yes.
But the needs and what community looks like for a woman and for a man is very different.
Very different. And the sad part is, big picture, the churches struggle with that, is how to reach men, how to lead men. And some of it is in our culture. We've seen some different times. There's been this hyper element of manhood that's come out, and some of it's been event driven. And so we know that this doesn't need to be event driven. Yes, we're going to have events. Yes, we're going to have certain weekends, but it's going to begin to build in the fabric of our church, of our connect groups from within, that anybody could walk in off the street and look in and go. But also it's going to affect whether you're single or married or you have 10 kids or no kids, it doesn't matter. We're going to pour into that role. And I'll tell you one particular thing in there that is huge for us as the church is the biblical mentorship. We see that and try to pass that on. Younger generations are desperate to see older men being godly and to have those mentors pour into them. And that's millennials, that's Gen Z. Some of them are leading incredible companies and businesses and pro sports, all kind of stuff, but yet they still don't have really good mentors that are godly in their life. So where are they getting their answers? Some of them are coming up with whatever they can find. Some are getting counsel that's not good counsel from other friends or other people, or our culture is feeding them answers that aren't truly helping them in the long run. And so that's one of the things down the road is to build in this biblical mentorship where younger men can ask for help, older men can ask for help, and vice versa, and you can share that. Now, that's not easy, because I will say, sometimes it seems like with the women's ministry, man, they can just, hey, we're having this, and 100 women show up out of nowhere. Men aren't like that. Men do. Now, a lot of times you got to throw food and meat and all kinds of stuff at men, and they show up. But I think that's one of the things that we see that will be very beneficial down the road. Biblically, we see that. Titus 2, we see that. Paul, Timothy, we see David and the mighty men. Man, throughout the Old Testament, there wasn't a whole lot of real polished, pretty stuff there with David and those mighty men, but there was something there of biblical manhood that was very powerful that I think our culture is hungry for. They're hungry for that element. And so I would appeal to younger men to seek out the membership of a mentorship of other men, but also I'm also going to appeal to the older men, the seasoned men, to not retire on this biblical role of being a mentor. We need you to come back and invest in our younger men. Now, you obviously know there's so many jokes and so many things about boomers and millennials and Gen Z, and you're this and you're that, and all of that is out there, we got to navigate it. Because where we're at as a church is we can laugh, make jokes, all that, but the reality is there are men struggling. There are men down. There are men absent, and they don't know how to get it right. And no one is perfect. You and I both know, man, we're always 2 steps away from messing up and then coming back and getting grace again and again. And we know God is providing that. We need older men, seasoned men, that'll invest in younger generation. Not to say, well, I don't understand them. You're right. There's a lot of newer generation that are different, that are unique. How do we capitalize on that? How do we, as a church, invest in that and give that biblical mandate to pass it on?
Well, and something you've shared with our students for years that I've always appreciated is a high value on knowing God's word and knowing what you believe, right? This charge as Christians, like, hey, if you're claiming the name of Christ and you're claiming to believe God's word is true, can you say that you've read every word in God's word in the Bible? Have you gone through that? And so this idea in mentorship too, it's not just simply, hey, my life experience. Hey, this is what I know from living. Yes, there's a little bit of that, but there is also this element of I am taking God's word, I've applied it in my life. Let me help you understand God's word and see God's word. And so I think that's going to be a fascinating component. The more we can point people into the scriptures and ending spending time in God's word every day, that discipleship path is just going to take off.
Yeah, we're not talking about just a life coach. I mean, we all need life coach. There's things that we need. I mean, the fact that Tom Brady needs a coach, I'm like, who in the world? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Everybody needs some element of life coach, but it's way deeper than that. It's biblical mentorship that will walk alongside and give them a direction. Now, same is true of these older men. They have their struggles and they have to walk through the same thing of how do I walk in and be an example and show men when I do struggle, when I do fail, when I am being absent and passive, and when I need to step in, and when I need to be called out. I mean, that's one thing about men. Sometimes men need to be called out, and I need to be thumped in the chest sometimes and go, hey, you're out of line. But that's not every approach, and that's not everybody that does that. But I will say clearly, there are times when I don't get it, and I'm chasing my own flesh or my own desire or my own part of the world, and I realize sometimes it's a godly man or godly friend that is pushed back on me scripturally and humble me and bring me back to where I need to be in Scripture and with what God called us to do.
Man, this is good. WB, I am sad because there's this little element of, we've gotten to work very closely together in student ministry, and this is going to be you launching out, you and your family launching out into a new season of ministry with men, but man, I couldn't be more excited for you, right? Like,
that's good.
Just seeing God invigorate some new passions and some avenues for those passions you had for a long time, and discipleship, and seeing men like you're the perfect fit for this. So I'm so excited for it. What can our people here at Green Acres, what can they start to expect in terms of men's ministry? I know there's going to be a layered approach here, and not everything overnight is going to come out, but just looking ahead, what are some things you're excited about and that you see coming on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible time in ministry. I mean, one thing we were clear on, that we know our calling, and I know my calling, what God has called me to do, but my career may change, but the calling hasn't changed of being a pastor and following God and equipping God's people. It's just going to take a different flavor right now. And I still like pizza. I still like teenagers. I mean, all those things are there. But this shift is going to be very interesting and very unique. There is, when Pastor Michael first started talking to me about this, and we just started dreaming and vision, and when all this was coming out, man, these fires inside of me were just getting gas poured on them. So it's been incredible to see this process. Where we are now is beginning of summer. Is we got a big summer ahead of us in student ministry. We're about to go just a couple weeks to Mission Kansas City and Mission Tulsa, and so we have a lot of things happening this summer and camps and a lot to reach. So what we'll do is we'll go through this summer, finish out June and July, and then we'll start in August. And so there'll be a number of things that kind of fall in place that'll get us in line and directly push full time into that. So we're excited. It will be a process that will be able, there'll be some practical things pretty quick. We'll start putting stuff on the calendar, start announcing all those kind of things, but it will take a little bit of time to build. And, one thing I'll be doing a lot more early morning breakfast than I am late
that
night
owl will be put to the test. Yeah.
So there'll be changes for sure. Just the structure of it and where we're heading, but a lot of that will come down this fall for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be an exciting season at Green Acres. We're just scratching the surface too on a lot of these discussions, but hopefully, if you're watching or listening, you got to know Walter a little bit more. You got to share in some excitement about men's ministry and where we're heading here at Green Acres. And whether you're a guy who's going to be a part of this or maybe a lady who has a husband, a son, a dad who could be connected in with men's ministry, you see the biblical mandate and the potential for community to exist here. But Walter, I appreciate you joining me today.
So good.
This has been fun. If you're new to Connect, the CGM podcast, I would encourage you and you like what you heard today, go ahead and share this on social media. If you're on YouTube, go ahead, hit that bell, get those reminders of future episodes. We've got a lot of exciting content coming out this summer. But yeah, Walter, again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
That's good.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode and joining in on our conversation. If you liked what you heard or you want to know more about Green Acres, go check out our website at gabc.org or follow us on Instagram at gabc_Tyler. Have a great day.